I'm actually going to change my talk because I had a lot of discussions over lunch. And there was another aspect of my life that I think you guys would actually like to hear about more. So what I'm going to do is, instead of cutting half of it out, I'm going to put twice the value into this talk. And what I'm going to do is actually talk faster so that, you'll listen faster, right? So I'm actually going to, God willing, I'm going to try to give you as quick a background of what it means to get a download, and then give you some really extreme examples of downloads from God. Now, what's interesting about downloads is we're not the first ones to ever do it. One of the most interesting figures in history is George Washington Carver, and this quote from him is really maybe pivotal in understanding how to get downloads from God. He says, "I love to think of nature as an unlimited broadcasting station through which God speaks to us every day, every hour, and every moment of our lives, if we only tune in and remain so." I'm going to come back to this quote. What's interesting about John Washington Carver is he was born a slave, and he was adopted because the year after he was born, slavery was abolished. So his owners adopted him because he was orphaned. And eventually, long story short, he went to become a professor in Tuskegee Institute, Tuskegee University. One of the things he did, other than teaching his kids, was that every day, every morning, he would actually ask God for the secrets. It's like, "Lord, disclose to me your secrets." He would always ask God. And then one day he recalls, he says one day he went as bold as to ask, "Lord, give me the secrets of the universe." You know, sometimes we're just not bold enough. When was the last time you asked for the secrets of the universe? Maybe give me the secret of this coding bug that I can't get over, right? Or whatever. We sometimes limit God in what he can potentially give you. Now, in his own words, he said, God answered him. And he said, "George, you are not ready for the secrets of the universe." But he said, "I will give you the secret of the peanut." From that point on, he said he went into his lab, which he calls his little God's workshop. And he said every day he would lock his door and God would give him downloads. And in a short period of time, he came up with 300 uses and inventions of the peanut. And actually, if you look at all the history, he actually went on to invent 118 also different uses of the sweet potato, and he totally revolutionized the southern farming industry by changing the way they plant crops, and the peanuts actually, when they plant it, revitalize the soil so they can actually have better crops. It revitalized the whole economy. Only because he asked, "Lord, give me the secrets of the universe." And he was open to the downloads that God was giving him. Thus the quote that you go back, he's saying God is broadcasting this stuff all the time, every day, every hour, every moment. The first experience I had in having a download from God was when we started our company. Actually, one of my partners is here. We started a company called Full Armor. We started in college 33 years ago. And the whole premise of this was that we would start a company purely based on Christian principles. We're not going to deviate from it. It was almost an experiment. So actually my friend, my partner, Rich, actually turned down all the job offers, didn't even take a job out of college. And I was working for another company, but working nights and weekends to get our company going. And our whole thing was, can a company survive if it ran purely on Christian principles? That was really our premise. Our first major customer that came calling, only about a year or two after we started, was Walmart. Largest retailer in the world, right? And one of the things and I remember when they sent us the check, because they wanted our product, they saw our product on the shelves and they said, "Can you make a product that protected our PCs in all of our stores?" At the time, in 1988, this is how many stores they had in the US. Right? So they came to us and said, can you protect our PCs in the stores? And I was like, oh, we're 3 guys in a garage. In a base, actually, it was in Rich's parents' basement, right? And we're like, of course, we can do anything. So we said, we'll do the project. They sent us the check, and we were so happy because we were now going to pay all our bills. So I remember, us cashing the check, we're paying all our bills off, and everything was great. I coded everything on my one computer we had. And of course, in that period of time, we had no QA process. It was me on my laptop. When we coded and ran, oh, it runs, great, it's ready to go. Now, at Walmart, the way they did distribution was through satellite at the time. So when you upload a piece of software, they would distribute it via satellite to every store simultaneously. So we gave them the software. It was actually security software, so it actually would secure and protect the machine. But in order to do that, we had to take over the operating system. So when they actually distributed the software to every store in the US, what I didn't know was that on the Walmart machines, the code that I wrote had a bug in it. And it subsequently locked up every computer in Walmart. So we get a call from their legal counsel, which is the call you never want to get from Walmart's legal. And they said, we're going to stop payment on the check, and we may proceed legal proceedings, because they thought we were crooks and we're going to run with the money and things like that. And it's great to have principles. It's really good to have principles that you expound and you want to run things by Christian principles, but principles are nothing when you don't exercise them when it really hurts, right? And this was really going to hurt. And so our response to the legal counsel was, that's not who we are. We don't operate like that. We own up to our mistakes. And so we'll not only fix the bug, but we'll pay for the redistribution of it. And we'll even return your money if you need to, right? And the guy on the other line just didn't expect a response like that. And so he was kind of taken aback and said, let me give you a day. I'll give you 24 hours. You can fix this, you can keep the money, right? I'm like, oh, this is awesome, right? Well, I don't know, how many of you are coders out there? Right? Almost, that's the most coders I've ever seen in a talk like this. So you'll understand, trying to find a bug in like 150,000 lines of code that you can't recreate in 24 hours. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack the size of a football field, right? It is really, really difficult. And so here I am in my one lone computer that doesn't recreate the bug, and I'm looking through pages and pages of code. And 22 hours into this, I can't find a bug, right? And I remember my business partners coming over and laying their hands on me, on my shoulder, and saying, Danny, it's time. And I'm thinking it's time to throw in the towel, be an indentured servant to Walmart for the rest of our lives, whatever that is. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to give up. But their response was, it's time to pray. And you can't imagine how many times in our history, in the 33 years, that scenario has played out over and over again. And it has. And it always starts with, it's time to pray. So I remember that moment when they laid hands on me and I put my head down and I prayed. And this is the only time it's ever happened to me, so don't think I'm like some type of visionary or an evangelist or anything. But when I closed my eyes and they started praying, I was seeing a vision. But because I'm a computer scientist, the visions I see is in code. Right? So I see code as they're praying, running through my eyes, and it actually stopped at one section of code. When I stopped praying, I opened my eyes, went to that section of code, went to a line, and again, for those programmers here, you'll understand, it was C++ programming. So I actually had a pointer redirection problem. There was a line of code where I put a star instead of an asterisk. So it's pointer redirection. One is going in, and the other one is going a reference to. So I was going the wrong way, and was pointing to a piece of memory that didn't exist. So it's a crash. But that only happened on Walmart machines because that code only ran on a certain version of the operating system. And there was no way I would have known otherwise. That was the first experience of getting a download from God. Right? And what I started to see is a pattern. there's a pattern of how to get downloads. Right? I'm going to skip 33 years. I mean, this is our customer base now. These are the customers that we've been able to engage with, close, and what happens is when you are faithful to God, God is faithful to you. And not to say that, hey, we're going to be successful no matter what. You know what? Our company has gone through the ups and downs of every startup possible, right? Because every time we rely on ourselves, God pulls our thing away, and we're like left on the street naked. And then we get to the top of the hill, and we think, great job, guys. Then God just pulls the rug out from under us, right? It's because He wants the glory. And that's the other part of downloads, is we have to give credit to God. I'm going to leave the slide here and talk about the other half of my life. My partners and I, we still run the company. But recently, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I had a second calling. And that was a calling to come to Valley Christian schools and impact through education the next generation of students. And I resisted this calling for a long time. I literally said no to the president of Valley 3 or 4 times, and I just couldn't shake it. He's like, Danny, I think you need to be here running this thing. I was like, I don't know what it is. Because what happened was I actually volunteered. And if you volunteer for something that is Christian-based, be very wary, because God may call you. But what I found out is all my experience, all the learnings that I did in my company was to prepare me for this one moment, the second calling. And that's really humbling to know. Your current job may just be a stepping stone to where God wants to take you in some place you may never even dreamed of going. If you'd have told me 3 or 4 years ago that I'd be working in education, I'd be like, no way. Why would I be in education? I'm a technologist, right? But I volunteered for a space program that Valley actually does. We actually had a space program that allows kids to do science experiments, and they fly it up to the International Space Station. I looked at this thing, and I'm like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And then they're expecting students to do this. But what inspired me was, wait, this is so inspiring. I saw students, not only at Valley, but other schools that we were doing this program with. They were just so inspired. They're just being moved and changed. And I said, you know what? And I was praying about this. I said, Lord, there's a really great opportunity for us to take this and be able to give it out to every student in the world. Imagine if you could change their demeanor and their passion for learning by giving them this type of program. So, ignorantly enough, sometimes ignorance is bliss, because ignorantly I went up to the president of the school and said, hey, would you allow me to take this program and change it so that it can be democratized to every student? He said, oh my goodness, Danny, we've been praying for this. This is something we've been wanting to do, but it's been so difficult. And so I said, let me just try. I remember designing a system. If you can think about it from a NASA standpoint, since the 60s, the way experiments have been done is they take an experiment that a scientist would have done, they load it onto a rocket, like SpaceX or Orbital. They fly it up to the ISS, an astronaut will install it, they run the experiment, they take it back down, and then through a Dragon or one of those space flights, they bring it back down. Impossible, right, cost-wise. But what I proposed was a system where we fly up a science experiment permanently and put it onto the ISS that can do all different sorts of experiments. Have kids recreate that experiment, and then via software upload the experiment and run it. Every engineer I talked to told me it's impossible. Every engineer. Impossible, don't even try it. Not even worth the time, right? And finally, I found some engineers that would help me do this crazy thing. We got it up, long story short, because I'm running out of time. We got it up there, we flew it up about a year and a half ago, we installed it, and it ran the first time. You know who came to visit afterwards? The chief scientist of NASA came to visit, because he heard about what was done. And he sat in the conference chair at Valley Christian, and I had to show him what we did, because he wouldn't believe me. And it's like, here it is, it's a live feed from your ISS. It's coming down. And he said, Danny, I asked my NASA engineers 2 years ago if this was possible, and they told me it was impossible to do. You know what his next question to me was? Do you believe in God? What was impossible for man is possible for God. when we are open, when we're bold enough to ask the question, right? George Washington Carver was bold enough to say, Lord, give me the secrets of the universe. God, help me put some stupid idea into space, right? God is the one who gives you the download to do it. The last part is you have to tune in to listen to God, and you have to give him the credit. All credit be to God, because it is not possible. That is why even the chief scientist of NASA realized, no matter how smart I would have seemed to him, he knew immediately, there's no way you could have done this. So that's why he's like, did you believe in God? Because the only way to do this is the impossible. And that opened up his heart and mind to the possibility of a God. Can you imagine being able to witness to people by the innovations and the downloads that you're getting, and he's able to show to the rest of the world?